Rising out of the dot-com ashes and the successes of Amazon and eBay are a new breed of companies run by a new breed of entrepreneurs. What use was the World Wide Web if you couldn't navigate it and get where you wanted to go? The companies that took a stab at search included some of the most iconic names in the history of the net, like Yahoo and Excite. In 2007, search companies such as Yahoo and Google generated billions of dollars in revenue and profits, making them the envy of entrepreneurs everywhere. But at the dawn of the web, no one used it for business or commerce. The very idea was considered heretical, even evil, by some. Advertising split the early web community. On one side were venture capitalists and other financial types who figured that the internet was a new kind of medium, and media had always been supported by advertising. On the other side were the internet utopians, people who saw the web as a place that promised freedom.
Yeah, there wasn't a commercial environment. These weren't businesses. This was just a bunch of university students, research folks that were experimenting with this new thing.
When we launched, we were 17th place in a 17-horse race. And we knew that 1 year from then, we were either going to be number 1 or number 2, or we were going to be dead.
It caused people to engage in really extreme innovation, extreme competition, and a very extreme and unsustainable way to live.
There was definitely a tit for tat going on. You know, we would launch personalization, Yahoo would launch personalization, Yahoo would launch email, we would launch email.
I'm using Yahoo Search to write a book on finger snapping.
So it was a bit of a blur in the first few years. Nobody knew how big this could get.
But although the search companies were having great success, they were also turning into something quite different from what they started out to be. By focusing on the flashy, they'd lost sight of what it was that brought users to them in the first place, the need to find things on the ever-expanding web. In other words, the search engine companies stopped caring about search. The problem was, to put it bluntly, that when it came to actually locating relevant information on the web, Yahoo, Excite, and the rest of the so-called search companies, frankly, stunk. You could spend all day typing in various combinations of words to find what you were looking for and still come up empty. Most of the results you'd receive were links to sites trying to sell you something you didn't want. And all too often, smut. In short, the world was hungry for a radically better way of searching the web. Sure enough, it came from the exact same institution that had already produced Yahoo and Excite, Stanford. Once again, the name of the company was unrepentantly goofy: Google.
The ground on my feet, it seems the world's falling down around me. The nights are all long, I'm singing the song to try and make the answers more than maybe. And I'm so confused about what to do. Sometimes I wanna throw it all away. So here I am, growing older all the time, looking older all the time, feeling younger in my mind. Here I am, doing everything I can, holding on to what I am, pretending I'm a Superman.
Google is a search engine. It allows us to search the web. And it's also a company that really focuses on innovative technologies and organizing the world's information.
I'm trying to sleep, I lost count of sheep, my mind is racing faster every minute. What could I do more? Yeah, I'm really not sure.
When we say all the world's information, we really do mean all. We've focused primarily to date on web pages, but now our efforts are expanding into things like books, printed materials that would appear in library, into videos, into a lot of different modes and mediums that where we think we can help people organize information.
The first person ever to see Google in action was one of the boys' computer science professors, Hector Garcia Molina.
We played around in my office for a while looking at the in-link counts, as they're called, how many pages point to your page, of interesting pages. So we looked at the Stanford homepage, and then we compared it with other departments, maybe MIT or Berkeley, who are our competitors, and we had lots of fun seeing which of these pages was more important than the others because it was referenced more highly.
When Larry and Sergey launched Google onto the Stanford website, everyone who saw it realized it was something special. Here was a search engine that cared about search again. From their grad student office on the Stanford campus, shown here in this never-before-seen footage, Page and Brin struggled to manage the runaway popularity of their wondrous innovation.
There was so much traffic to Google that it nearly brought the entire Stanford University internet to its knees. And so the university administration said, you must move off campus.
Today we look at Google with its stock market value of more than $200 billion, its vast campus in Silicon Valley, and its culture-shifting influence, and we assume that there must have been investors banging down the door, especially at the height of the dot-com bubble, when some of the dumbest ideas imaginable were being showered with cash. But at the time, the reaction among the money men to Google wasn't, hey, no brainer. Instead, it was, oy vey, not another search engine. One of the few early dissenting voices to this chorus of doubt was that of Vinod Khosla, a hugely successful venture capitalist, tech guru, and one of the co-founders of Sun Microsystems.
I met them, I loved them, said I'd love to work with them in some way. So I introduced them to Excite. He said, this is a wonderful search engine and a better approach.
To Khosla, the logic was simple. At the time, he was an investor in the search company Excite, and he figured that if Excite bought or licensed Google's search technology, it would give them an advantage against their bitter rival Yahoo, which seemed to be dominating every battle and vanquishing all of its opponents in the portal wars. If Excite wasn't going to be crushed by Yang and Philo's army, it would need some fresh artillery. As any military commander will tell you, the key to winning a war is striking the right alliances. Now, in the hopes of getting Excite to team up with Google, Khosla arranged a meeting for Excite's chief technologist, Graham Spencer, to meet with Larry and Sergey at this sushi restaurant. The Google boys arrived with high hopes of securing a lifeline for their project. They'd done a test to demonstrate how much better their search results were than Excite's. Now, firing up their laptops, they showed the results to Spencer. Spencer went back and told Excite's CEO, George Bell, about Google's technology, and so did Khosla.
And there was a lot of resistance. And they'd always come back with a fairly rigid view that search was generic, we can do this, we are almost as good, it doesn't matter. And it wasn't the issue of price, because Google was very cheap then. They could have bought it for something like $1 million. It's worth $100 billion today.
Wait, let's rerun this. Excite could have bought Google for about $1 million? That's a pittance in Silicon Valley terms. The company had just walked away from what for them would have been the deal of a lifetime.
And sure, in hindsight, I'll put my hand up and say, I look dumb. But people didn't think you could make money from search, or people thought you could make some money from search. They certainly didn't think it was a mint. I mean, look, let's be honest, search is a mint. It's a mint.
But it wasn't just Excite that failed to see Google's full potential. Every search company in Silicon Valley turned them down flat. So with increasing frustration, Larry and Sergey sought out a professor of theirs from Stanford who happened also to be a serial entrepreneur, a man named David Sheridan.
They were after, I think, a fairly modest amount of money in the sort of $1 million range, and I had made some money with this startup that had been bought by Cisco, and I was working with Andy Bechtolsheim, who is a well-known Silicon Valley investor.
So David called me up and told me I really had to meet these Google guys, and I drove up to his house. It was a beautiful, summer, sunny morning.